Hello. Learning now is going to move on to the final part of the war in North Africa. So, if you remember, last time we left it with the German forces under General Erwin Rommel coming to the aid of the Italians who are being mauled by the British and Commonwealth forces in North Africa. Now, a town that was quite important throughout the war in Africa was the Libyan city of Tobruk. I'll just indicate where it is on the map. You see a red arrow pointing to it. And we can see that by 1941, the Germans and the Italians had pushed the British back towards Egypt. And eventually, the town of Tobruk fell to the Axis forces, the Germans and the Italians, and it was a major blow for the Allies. We can see the numbers of troops that were captured, and understandably, morale was starting to dip. So by the summer of 1942, Rommel's forces had pushed the Allies, the British and Commonwealth forces, all the way back to El Alamein. So we're inside Egypt now and getting dangerously close to Cairo. But the problem that Rommel would suffer from continually during his fighting in North Africa was supplies. All the supplies that the Nazis had came in through places like Tripoli. So the further they got towards Egypt, the longer the supply lines across the desert, and even getting the supplies into North Africa was a major struggle for the German Italians. Crossing the Mediterranean Sea, many of the supplies were sunk by the Royal Air Force and the Royal Navy. So by midsummer 1942, the Nazis had stopped. So British morale wasn't great, and Churchill chose a new commander, a very inspirational choice, General Bernard Montgomery. Now, Monty was really a people's person. He managed to make everyone in his units feel that he cared about them. One of the strange things that he did was he covered his beret, his headdress, with all the different regimental badges to show his affiliation and affinity, basically his care for all the different units under his command. And Montgomery was tasked with turning the tide of the war in North Africa. And the place where it was going to happen was El Alamein. What the map here shows, the red line going from north to south, top to bottom, shows the front line. So on the eastern side, we can see all the Allied forces, Australians, New Zealanders, South Africans. We've even got our local division here, the 51st Highland Division, and even the Greeks, facing a mixture of Nazis and Italians. Monty wouldn't be rushed into the battle despite all of Churchill's pressure, and key to him was having adequate supplies. And we can see that by October he'd amassed a huge army in terms of men, but also tanks, and we can see that he vastly outnumbered Rommel's forces. The fighting was horrendously violent, but within a matter of days, the German lines had broken and Nazis were in retreat. Concurrent with this, in late 1942, we had something called Operation Torch. This is where the Americans landed in North Africa, and we can see here the graphics meant to show the Nazis being held in a pincer movement. They're trapped. They've got the Americans advancing from the west and the British and other Allied forces pushing the Germans from the east. And really the writing was on the wall. Rommel, he wanted to try and escape with as many men as he could across the Mediterranean Sea. Hitler, in something that's probably reminiscent of Stalingrad, refused, and the result was that huge numbers of German and Italian troops became prisoners. And this took place by early summer 1943. It had been a long, hard fight, but the significance of this was the first time that Hitler's forces had been defeated by the Western powers. And equally important, so it's not just morale, was the possibility of launching an attack on mainland Europe. So this took place, it's called Operation Husky, where the Allies went across the Mediterranean, initially into Sicily, down at the bottom of Italy, and then up through mainland Italy, always pushing further and further north, eventually towards Germany itself. And I'm sure you're aware that by this stage, Germany was also being pushed back from east to west by the Red Army, by Stalin's forces. Okay, so huge mounting pressure. Now, what I'd like you to do now is to look at the Google document that has been shared with you. It's got, I think it's 5 different questions. Look very carefully at the marks allocation. Read the text that's been highlighted as well. I think there's a 10-minute YouTube video that gives you a little bit more detail on El Alamein. I hope you enjoy that. And look forward to seeing many of this week in Google Meets, but also receiving your work as well. So well done so far. Keep going, guys.